Hello and welcome back. This is the Modern Learning Overhaul Series. My name is Josh Korb. I'm a computer science and media specialist from York, Pennsylvania. I am currently a teacher at Eastern York Middle School. And you can find out more information about me or about more about the series that we're talking about now at info.joshuakorb.com or follow me on YouTube or Twitter. This series is all centered around this idea of a pivotal shift towards the future of education is happening and whether or not we're going to get on board and follow along with it. So there are five main key strands that we're talking about in this series. The first one, which we talked about last video, which is modern architects and how modern learning architects are at the center. They're the core group of teachers that are getting together, that are focusing on this modern learning process and bringing it to fruition. They're bringing it to the district. They are on fire. They're ready to go, and they are bringing it to everyone that's involved. So they are at the forefront of everything, and we need to really focus on supporting those modern teachers. So in this process, we then are thinking, okay, how can we support them? So that brings us to today's video, which is all about professional development. And this sort of fell into our laps because of the pandemic that happened. So at the end of last video, we talked about how COVID-19 occurred and everything shut down at the end of March. And we had to reinvent everything. So we had to go remote. We had to figure out how things were going to run, what we were going to do. We briefly talked about last video of a playlist. So that's what we ended up doing. In the next three videos, we end up talking about learning plans, digital ecosystems, and mastery badging. So that's coming up in the very near future of the Modern Learning Overhaul Series. So in this video, again, we are going to talk about the professional development redesign and what we did to really focus on professional development and what it would take to bring a modern twist to traditional professional development overall. So let's go over 2020 in a nutshell. I know that it's hard to believe that if you're watching this video and it still is 2020, I am sorry that it is still going on. Hopefully on January 1st, it indeed becomes 2020 and it doesn't just become December 32nd, and that we can put this whole year behind us. But maybe a lot of good can come out of this year by talking about modern education and the future of education as we move forward. So we have this school closure way back. So I just want to give you a brief overview of what we've done as a district and what we've crammed into just the last 9 months while I'm recording this video right now. So we had a school closure back in March, and which we all know. We had about a 2-week window where nothing was happening. We were a lot was happening behind the scenes, but nothing was happening in front of the scenes. The governor declared a state of emergency. Everything was shut down, restaurants, everything. So we went on lockdown, and we were just trying to figure things out in Pennsylvania here. So we ended up putting together a remote learning website, which you'll see glimpses of here and there, especially when we get to the remote learning resources, as well as the digital ecosystem. We'll talk about all that in another video. But today we're talking about the professional development. So in a 2-week time span, our administration got together with the help of some of our modern learning architects and some other people that were involved, and really came together and put together a streamlined, high-intensity training, almost like a boot camp for teachers to get ready for not only just remote learning, but for the unforeseeable future of what was going to go on. We thought, okay, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. We'll be back at it. Well, here we are 9 months later and still don't know what's going to happen. We went blended back in the fall. We're now full time. We don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. So we're constantly trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So to combat that, we just need to be as prepared as possible. So we ended up developing the remote learning website. We went back to full-time remote learning. Well, in that time span of 2 weeks, we had some professional development opportunities. We ended up developing a progress monitoring system to keep everybody informed and everybody in the loop since we were all remote. We developed an instructional portal over the course of the summer then to get ready for the fall. We developed a learning portal for our students. And then the school year began. And now we're here. And then we have some future stuff planned. So that's the timeline of everything going on. And of course, there was an election in there and still ish going on, and then there were killer bees, all this stuff. So 2020 was definitely a year that happened. and there was a lot of stuff. So this was the timeline of education-wise what happened in our district. So let's break down that 2-week window of what we ended up doing and how it sort of shifted. And there was this pivot that happened in our professional learning a journey that we were taking. So the original plan, if we back up to last video, we were talking about how we were doing the train the trainer model. We were doing these modern learning architects. We had all these teachers that were being trained. We had those 4 sessions, a couple sessions here and there that were focusing on creating learning plans, building culture in the classroom, developing SOPs. We were developing all these things that were building these learner-centered cultures to frame modern learning in our classroom. So that was the original plan. We were going to roll it out. It was going to take 3 to 5 years to get everybody on board in the district. Well, then everything came to a standstill and we had to make a decision. Are we going to be reactive to COVID-19 or are we going to be proactive? Thankfully, our administration was like, okay, well, yes, we have to be reactive. We have to do something different. We have to react to the situation that's going on and take care of it. But more importantly, we have to move forward. So we ended up pivoting. So we took this right-hand turn and we were like, okay, we need to come up with some way that we are going to tackle remote learning. So we developed playlists. And if you watched last video, we talk a lot about playlists, or not a lot, I skimmed over it, but we talked about playlists a little bit about remote learning and how that was sort of the cornerstone, the turning point of how we were starting to interact with our students in a remote way. And we were going district-wide, man. We're all remote, so we all got to get on board with this whole modern learning thing because it's not slowing down. So traditional models just aren't going to fit this new model that we're working towards. So we had this pivot, and we're going to run with it. And I know that there was a lot of trepidation, a lot of cold feet, but we move forward, and we're in a lot better place right now. There's still a lot of things unknown, and we just have to keep it on. So we started rethinking what professional development was going to look like. So we had these questions in mind. So what is it going to look like? What are our priorities? So definitely we need to have some training about what does remote learning look like? How are we going to facilitate remote learning? What are the goals of remote learning? But not just remote learning, but learning in general. Modern learning is what we're really trying to focus on. Not just putting a Band-Aid and slapping it on, but really thinking about long-term solutions. And a phrase that one of our principals came up with, Matt Freed, shout out to him, he came up with future-proofing, which is one of the best phrases I can think of. We are trying to future-proof our educational system right now. Rather than being reactive, we are trying to be proactive with our approaches within our professional development, which has started to pay off tenfold, at least I think so. So let's think about professional development. So I want you to look at this cartoon. Let's think about how professional development may have used to be ran before. Now, maybe you are in a stellar district who has had really engaging professional development before, but I know that that I have sat through some professional developments that, yes, there may have been loss of consciousness. I may have dozed off and not thrown myself under the bus or anything, but it's happened. I've felt totally out of touch with what was going on, and I just didn't get it. So we need to rethink what professional development should be. And really, shouldn't professional development be modern learning? Shouldn't it be just what we're trying to do with our students? And I know I'm not the first person to say this. I know that there are districts out there, and my district included, has done a great job of doing some personalized learning for our teachers. I've done some scaffolded approaches, differentiated professional development approaches. We've had tech camps where we've differentiated those approaches as well. If you fall into this category, you go do this one, go do this professional development, try this, test this tool out. So there's a bunch of good things that are happening, but let's do it at scale. Let's get everybody involved and everybody doing the thing that we're trying to get our students to do as well. So leading by doing is the best form of leading. So we have workshops, developments, coaching, knowledge, teaching, learning, all these things that go into training that we need to constantly refer to and differentiate, which really brings me back to that first video that we talked about, which is Modern Architects. In there, we talked about the multiple modes of a classroom. what the multiple methods of instruction look like. That should reflect in our professional development because we don't all learn the same. We're still students. We're still students of life, right? We're still learning things. I just learned how to change a carburetor on a lawnmower the other day. So I'm still learning things. You're still learning things. So we should still reflect our learning the same way. So why not modernize our learning process? And one thing that I will commend our administration on is that they actually put together playlists and learning plans that reflected what we were trying to do with our students, with the staff as well. So they put together these learning plans and playlists, and I wish I had some more examples here for you, but they put together learning plans and playlists for the staff that mimicked exactly what we're trying to do with our students. And it was very, very powerful because what it did was show that it's possible. It showed how practical they actually are, and that it shows the ownership that's involved in this process, and the tactfulness that's involved in choosing your own path and devoting the time to getting something done and celebrating your own successes along the way is imperative to the learning process. And if we instill those values in this endeavor, that's going to be more beneficial than anything that we could possibly do before. So we had synchronous activities, we had asynchronous activities. They provided templates. We had examples to follow for our own playlists. They put together countless examples of actual playlists and actual learning plans. Eventually, as we started doing the second pivot, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, we rethought how professional development was going to work. We chunked our professional development. We allowed for a lot more work time. We allowed for collaboration. Again, all things I'll talk about momentarily. So again, I'm gonna simultaneously talk about how all this was going on while remote learning was getting ready to kick off and fire up. So we're trying to get everybody back on board to start remote learning playlists. I believe we had like 3 or 4 days to prepare for students to come back. Virtually come back. So we were developing these remote learning playlists. So everybody throughout the district had the same exact model that we were following. We just had to adapt it to the different levels of the kids. But I ended up helping out and creating a remote learning website that housed all of these playlists. And we listed synchronous meets and links for activities for students to complete. And we were trying to make it as engaging and user friendly as possible. And the whole goal behind this was user friendliness because we didn't know, again, if a grandmother or a mother or a father or a sibling or a babysitter or I don't know, nobody was watching a child and helping them out through this learning process. So we had to make it as simple as possible to find and engage with the content. So this is what we thought was the easiest. So teachers would update these on a weekly basis, and the week would be set out in front of them. Now we end the year and we end up throughout the rest of the year. So let me break this down. Throughout the rest of the year, we ended up having a bunch of different mini segments of professional development that was involved, and where these were all times in which we were trying to pivot towards the learning plans instead of just learning playlists. So again, I really encourage you to go back and watch video number 1, which is the Modern Learning Architects. It gives that nice little framework of the progression from a learning playlist to a learning plan and what the difference is. But going towards a learning plan, a much more robust and individualized approach to education, we took that and broke it down into the individual manageable pieces that went into this process. Again, modeled it for the staff, and our administration did a great job during this process. And then this is a pivot number 2. So we did that pivot in the beginning that we had to. We were forced to make that pivot. We could have easily stayed on that path, been reactive, and kept that way, and stayed on that for the start of this year. Easily could have done that. But we were like, no, we're not going to stay with that because all that's doing is just trying to replace. It's not really enhancing. That's not empowering our students enough. So we wanted to empower our students to a degree that would take them even further. So that's why we wanted to future-proof our instruction by pivoting again and turning playlists into learning plans and making these short little bursts of professional developments throughout the spring and then ultimately at the beginning of the fall. We had synchronous activities, we had asynchronous activities, and the big piece here was we had peer collaboration with our modern learning architects, and we had a reflection time where we were able to work together collaboratively and reflect upon the work that we were creating and the learning plans that we were doing. And we were getting feedback from everyone, positive and constructive, throughout this process. Next up in the next video, we're going to talk about learning plans and playlists and how we made that shift. And we're going to really dissect what the learning plan is and all the different parts and components of it. But to recap, professional development has needed an overhaul for years, and now we've sort of been forced to make it. Because if we keep trying to do that same traditional model, guess what? It's going to be reflected in our teaching practices. So, modeling not only how to create learning playlists and plans, but also centering professional development around the same model of learning is extremely helpful in this transition process. So, we have face to face and remote learning experiences for teachers is extremely important to the professional development process. So thanks for watching. My name is Josh Korb. Again, if you want some more information, head over to info.joshuakorb.com. Thanks for watching once again, and I will catch you next video. Thanks again for watching. My name is Josh Korb, and that's it for this video. I hope to see you in the next video where we talk about learning plans. Thanks for watching. My name is Josh Korb. If you want some more information, head over to my website, info.joshuakorb.com. Thanks for watching. Head over to info.joshuakorb.com for more information and for some more templates. Thanks again. For more information, head over to info.joshuakorb.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.